Hello, my fellow comic book collectors. It's Alan, the Comic Collector Geek, and this is the Sunday video where I look at the hottest Golden Age comics for the week, and let's get right into it. Number 10 on the list is Fantastic Fears number 3. This is from Farrell, 1953, and it's a cool skull playing the flute, kind of doing that like sort of Indian snake basket thing where they have like the snakes coming out of the basket, and snake charmer, that's the word I was looking for. And the snakes in this case have heads on them, which kind of creepy, kind of cool. Very cool cover, classic cover. This was a 4.5 that sold, and it sold for $430. Now this is way down actually from its previous record, which was back in December of 2022, where it sold for $900. $960 to be exact. So about half where it had previously sold for. This book had sort of been hovering around that $900 mark for a while, and more recently it's kind of gone down. I'm not sure why. There was a sale that happened in September of 2023 where it sold for $959. So it just seems to continue to drop. I'm not sure why it's dropped. This was an eBay auction. Just nobody bid. It was somebody got a really good deal on it, I think. I would have expected it to go for around $700 to $800. But yeah, $430, really cheap. Okay. There are 38 of these on the census and 40 in total. So 38 universals, 40 total. Number 9 on the list is Zip Comics number 35. This is from MLJ, 1943. It's a Bob Montana cover, and it's the first appearance of Ginger Snap, which is a classic good girl character. Just a really cute character from, Archie character. But it's also a great cover. So this is one of those ones where you get two types of collectors going for it. One is the good girl art collectors like myself, and the other is the Nazi collectors. So this has a great cover where the Nazis getting punched in the face, and that's another thing that people collect. And so you get these two competitors going after the same kind of comic. Just a cool comic. This was a 1.5 that sold, and a restored copy. It was it was C2 restoration, which is slight moderate restoration. It sold for $495. Now, the restoration was a small amount of glue on the cover and on the interior, and the cover was actually glued to the comic, glued onto the comic. So, bit rough in terms of the restoration. Now, the previous record for this book was set back in January of 2024 for $358. So, this is up from that previous record. Comparing it to a blue label, the most recent low-grade blue label, like the lowest that sold recently, was 2.0, and it sold for $339 in October of 2017. So, that's fairly long. Price has gone up since then, but this is a fairly strong sale, from what I can see. I would have figured this one to be around more of a low $400 book, but very strong sale. There are 20 of these on the census, and 19 of them are universal blue labels. Number 8 on the list is Thrilling Comics number 64. This is from Better Publishing, 1948. It's an Alex Schomburg cover. And it's a great airbrush cover where you got the Princess Panther kind of entangled with a snake. So snake bondage. It's just a cool cover. This was a really high grade, actually. It was an 8.0 that sold, and it sold for $875, which is actually up from the previous record, which was back in June of 2023, where 8.0 copies sold for $800. So this used to be around $100 a point. Now it's a little bit more. It's slightly higher, maybe up 10%. So strong sale. Actually, I was surprised. I would have thought this book would have been more expensive, just because it's such a classic Alex Schomburg cover. But yeah, still a strong sale though. There are 42 of these on the census, and 41 of them are Universal Blue Labels. Number 7 on the list is Namora number 2. This is from Timely, 1948. It's a Ken Bald cover, and it's great. Good girl art cover. Kind of reminds me of the dolphin cover from Showcase 79. You know, you got Namora kind of stretched along the bottom of the cover. It's kind of a really great cover that way. I really like this. When I saw it, I was like, oh, I really like this book. This was a 3.5 copy that sold, and it was a signed copy, signed by Ken Bald. And it sold for $950, which is a steal. I have to say, because the previous record for the same book was set back in December of 2022, where it sold for $2,000. So it was basically, this was actually listed on eBay for $1,000 originally, or best offer. So basically 50% off right off the bat, and they took a best offer of $950. So I'm not sure, they just really wanted to sell it. I'm not sure why. Now, if you compare that to the Blue Label, there was a Blue Label 3.5 that sold, and it sold for $920 back in March of 2022. But actually, it had sort of dropped because there was a more recent sale for a 3.5 Blue Label, where one sold for $552 in the December of 2023. So I think whoever was the buyer, the original buyer that paid $2,000 for this, maybe felt like they had way overpaid. Like, I think way overpaid. Yeah, this is more of a price correction than anything else, because I actually feel like this is sort of in line with where it should be for signed 3.5. It's a really hard one to say. You know, I think it's still a great price. I really love this cover. It's cool that you have a Golden Age artist signature on it. The signature's from, there was a Comic-Con back in 2018 where Ken Bald signed a whole bunch of books. So generally when you see Ken Bald signatures, it's usually from that one Comic-Con. There are 41 of these on the census, and 39 of them are Universal Blue Labels. The 2 that aren't Universal Blue Labels are the signed copies. So there's 2 signed ones. Number 6 on the list is Mary Marvel number 1. This is from Fawcett Comics, 1945. It's a Jack Binder cover, and it's got the origin of Georgia Savannah. And she's kind of like the daughter of Dr. Savannah, who is the main bad guy for Captain Marvel. Now, this is the first issue of the series. The series ran 28 issues, and it's a pretty great series. I mean, in terms of covers, you know, you got all these really great covers. If you like Mary Marvel, kind of good girl covers. This was a 6.0 that sold, and it sold for $1,100. Which is up from the previous record, which was set back in February of 2025 for $900. So very strong sale. And this book, there's a lot of them on the census compared to most, you know, when you think of Golden Age, you think of sub 100, maybe even sub 50. Well, this one has 117 on the census and 102 Universal Blue Labels. Number 5 on the list is Exciting Comics number 60. This is from Nedor Publications, 1948. It's an Alex Schomburg cover, and it's another great airbrush cover with Judy of the Jungle underwater fighting a shark. It's like I really love shark covers, and this is one of my favorite shark covers. I'm still trying to get this one from my collection, actually. Really like this one. This was a 6.5 that sold, and it sold for $1,150, which is slightly down from from its previous record, where it sold for $1,169, so $19 more. back in August of 2023. So slightly down from that prior record. There was a more recent sale though, where a book had sold earlier in June, just like last month, for $1,000. So you know, it's sort of hovering between that $1,000 to $1,100 mark. I think it's like a $1,100 comic. So this was sort of in line with what you would expect it to sell for. Still a really great comic. I actually think that was a great price because it's one that I'd love to own. There are 59 of these on the census, and 57 of them are Universal Blue Labels. Number 4 on the list is Shadow Comics number 1. This is from Street and Smith, 1940. It's kind of a major key comic. It's the first comic appearance of the Shadow and Dr. Savage. So 2 major characters. The Shadow is a really cool character. I really liked the Shadow movie. I was a big fan. And I didn't realize that this was his first appearance. Kind of makes sense. And this was a 1.5 that sold. And it sold for $1,800. It was actually $1,798.99. That's what somebody bid. But we'll round it to $1,800, which is up from the previous record for this same grade, where one has sold in December of 2021 for $1,320. So very strong sale, up almost 50% from that prior record. There are 37 of these on the census, and 29 of them are Universal Blue Labels. Number 3 on the list is Tim Holt, number 21. This is from Magazine Enterprises, 1950. It's a Frank Frazetta cover, and it's a classic Frank Frazetta cover because it's got Ghost Rider. And this is one of those really desirable ones because it's just a cool Frank Frazetta cover. His art on Ghost Rider and on the covers is kind of very collectible. And this is kind of one of the earlier ones that he did. This is a really high grade too. It was a 9.0 signed copy by Frank Frazetta that sold for $1,974. Now, this is the only sale for a signed 9.0. Okay, so don't have very much to compare it with. And actually, this is one where it's really hard to figure out what the price is. But we have a few comparables. There's a 9.4 blue label that sold for $6,750 in July of 2021. It's the highest grade copy on the census, so you get that kind of super high premium, like usually maybe even like maybe like 6 times the value. It's just like, it is really that kind of difference between like the grade 9.0 and a 9.4, because usually you get doubling between each point. So it'd be like from a 9.0 to a 9.2 is kind of double. From 9.2 to 9.4, double. And 9.8, it keeps on doubling or tripling from that point. Well, because it's the highest grade is a 9.4, you'd expect sort of a tripling from the 9.2 to 9.4, just that premium of that high grade. So I would have figured this would be 4 to 6 times more expensive than the 9.0, if that makes sense. Hopefully that makes sense. So let's say it's 4 times on the low end. So 4 times, you're looking at around $1,500 to $1,800 is kind of a fair price. Now, the other thing that we have to compare it with is there was a 4.0 blue label again that sold for $600 back in December of 2024, so a more recent sale. And I'm sort of estimating that this book is sort of like an $1,800 to $1,900 book, and this is kind of in line with that. So it's one of those ones you really have to figure it out. What is a fair value for this signed high grade copy. It is the highest signed copy, highest grade signed copy. There's actually 2 signed copies by both with Frank Frazetta. But it's, it's a really cool book. Very good, cool collectible. This was actually signed in 2008. So one of the last things that he would have signed. So it's just a really cool book. There are 37 of these on the census, and 35 of them are Universal Blue Labels. The 2 that are not Universal Blue Labels are the signed copies. Okay, number 2 on the list is Captain America Comics number 9. This is from Timely, 1941. It's a Jack Kirby and Al Aberson cover, and it's got a mummified Bucky on it. It's got Nazis on it. It's kind of a cool cover. It's kind of a fun one. They're taking Bucky wrapped up like a mummy into some weird tomb. It's kind of a cool cover. This was a 5.0 restored copy that sold for $2,000. Now this has got C1 restoration, and C1 is like where it's color touch, very minor color touch, right? But the weird thing about the color touch on this one is it's on the centerfold. I'm not sure why. So it's not on the cover, it's on the centerfold. Just a really weird place for the color touch. Now, the previous record for 5.0 restored copy is actually really crazy high. It's $4,676. And that sold back in October of 2022. Now you think, oh wow, this book has really dropped. Well, not really, because that other book was signed by Jack Kirby, and that signature really adds a lot of value to that other restored copy. So it's one of those weird ones where the signed kind of brought up the price a lot, so it's kind of skewing the numbers. But we have one other book that we can compare it to. There was a 4.5 restored copy that sold in July of 2024 for $2,153. So basically this is in line with that 4.5 restored copy. Maybe a little low. Obviously you would expect a 5.0 to sell for a bit more than the 4.5. Probably you would have expected this one to be more like a $2,500 book. So a little bit on the low side. Somebody got a good price on it. I think 20% off on the price basically. There are 84 of these on the census, and 57 of them are Universal Blue Labels. Number 1 on the list is Speed Comics number 17. This is from Harvey, 1942, and it's a Joe Simon cover. Another bondage cover, actually. The bondage is way in the back. You have to kind of like really test your eyes and see it in the back, but there is a girl in bondage in the back. There's hooded figures, there's a brazier. They look like they're about to torture this poor girl. And this is just a cool book because it's also the first time you get Black Cat in the title, and her stories begin in this title. So kind of a cool book for Black Cat collectors. And you can see I'm a Black Cat collector. It also retells the story origin of the Black Cat, so it's also kind of a key that way for Black Cat. This was a 2.5 that sold, and it sold for $2,350. Now it's only sale in this grade, so again we have to figure out how does that compare to other books. There was a 3.0 that sold for $3,500 in December of 2024, so that's the most recent sale. And there was a CBCS 4.0 that sold for $3,360 in June of 2024. So based on those 2 sales, I kind of worked out the math on it that this book should be around $2,900 on the high end. But I think somebody got a good price on this one, actually, because I would have thought it closer to that $2,900 price, just based on the 2 sales. But somebody got a good price. Somebody was lucky. It was actually buy it now on eBay, so somebody did well. And this book is actually quite rare. It's there's only 13 of them, 13 of them on the census, and 10 of them are universal blue labels. And that's it. What did you think of the list? Put your comments in the comments below. And if you like this video, give it a like. And thanks again for watching. Bye for now.